The SS Nomadic is a former tender for the Olympic-class ships RMS Titanic. Construction of the tender began in December 1910 as it was laid down and was launched and completed within the space of a month, in April to May 1911. The Nomadic was 1,273 gross registered tons and was 220 feet long with 5 decks, with a speed of 12 knots and a capacity of 1,000 passengers. Its maiden voyage began on the same day Olympic was completed and sailed from Belfast to Cherbourg, where it would be stationed and registered. On the 14th of June, when Olympic's maiden voyage commenced, it took on passengers from the small Cherbourg port that the gigantic Olympic could not enter. It was fitted out with similar looks and interior to its bigger sisters Olympic and Titanic to give passengers a feel for what it was like crossing the North Atlantic before they got onto the ships. On April 10th, 1912, she transported 274 passengers to the RMS Titanic, including the likes of J.J. Astor and Molly Brown. After the Titanic sank, she remained a tender ship for the Olympic until World War I began. She was requisitioned by the French government as a minesweeper and also ferried American troops to the port of Brest. Now, not the body part, but a northern town in France with a beautiful natural harbour. 5 out of 5 stars. Worth a visit. But apart from that, did nothing else of note in the war and returned to tending shortly after. Also, nothing between 1918 and 1927 was of really note until she was bought by the I'll just put it on the screen here. I can't pronounce many French words, as my GCSE result will tell in August. #pray for ship-shape studies. Anyway, she continued to tender under a new company until 1934, after Cunard and White Star merged, following the Great Depression. This allowed the port of Cherbourg to be enlarged and allow the larger liners to dock rather than require tenders. The Nomadic was no longer needed as a tender for Cherbourg and was sold to the Société. I'm just going to put it on the screen because I cannot speak French. And it was also renamed the Ingénieur Minard. But for the sake of the video, I'll carry on calling her Nomadic. She had a key part to play in the evacuation of Cherbourg in World War II and was operated by the Royal Navy in Portsmouth as an accommodation ship. But during the war, the Nazis had badly damaged Cherbourg's port and could no longer take these larger liners, such as the Queen Mary. This saved the Nomadic from the shipbreakers because of this and returned to tending days once again. She did this until 1968, retiring from tending duties for the rest of her career. Following this, she laid in Cherbourg until April 1969, until she was moved to Le Havre, but laid there idle for 5 years, until she was bought by Yvonne Vincent and renamed Nomadic once again. This saved her from scrapping as she turned into a floating restaurant on the Seine, the French River in Paris. But due to technical difficulties in 1999, the restaurant was closed and was seized by the Paris harbour authorities in 2002, and the boat was towed to Le Havre. Not to mention that Vincent died in 2005, and the likelihood of this nearly century-old ship being scrapped was ever more likely, until she was bought by the UK and sent to Belfast to await restoration. I'd like to mention how on the Wikipedia page it says that the Nomadic's fate was sold to the UK. I cannot imagine a worse fate. Many charities stepped in to fund the restoration of the Nomadic and was priced at $7 million in total costs. It was a miracle that she'd lasted this long, as she was very much run down by this point, but nonetheless, Harland & Wolff, her original builders, began the restoration in 2011. This was over 100 years since she'd been laid down first in 1910. The restoration was completed within a year and was painted back to what she was like in her heyday, but now Mr. Bridge and flying bridge decks. Now she lays as a tourist attraction located around the Titanic Museum in Belfast. The Nomadic will never return to the sea again, but had a terrific career which involved being in both world wars and tendering some of the world's most extravagant ships in the 20th century.